guys? Welcome to the lounge. Bobby D here. I wanted to share a video with you guys of Tucker Carlson roasting the shit out of Piers Morgan. It's quite hilarious. And I was thinking, I'm actually glad that Tucker Carlson and Fox parted ways, because we get the real, raw, uncut version of Tucker Carlson. And that son of a bitch is quite funny. I got to say, I honestly cannot believe that Piers Morgan sat down and let Tucker Carlson slap him around the way he did. But he does. Check this out. It is hilarious.
I'm sorry. Self-determination is the core idea in democracy. They don't have it in Ukraine because they haven't had an election. They ignore the election because it's run by a dictator called Zelensky. If you wanted to say he's a dictator, that's fine. You support a dictator. The U.S., your government has supported many dictators, so is mine. That's kind of a fact of life. There are very few democratically elected leaders. Sometimes even our leaders aren't really democratically elected, as you know. I just don't like the moral bullshit that attaches to all of this.
That's fair enough.
Where we tell the population, we're on the side of democracy, and he's Winston Churchill.
I don't claim it's Mother Teresa against Hitler.
No, but you have, though. He's a marvelous person.
I like him. I'm allowed to, aren't I?
I guess you like dictators. I've never said of Putin he's a marvelous person, because, it's a little dictatory for me. I think he's really smart. I admire what he's done to Russia, but I'm not going to sniff his jock because he's kind of a dictator. But you're like, oh, I love that Zelensky. He's so great.
I do like him.
How can you like a man who's a dictator?
I don't think he's a dictator.
In what sense? He's not elected. He rules by force. He rules with guns.
Not only does he rule by force, he locked up all opposition media. And here's a little thing that Tucker is about to bring up. Tucker went to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin just to kind of get his story on things, which I absolutely understand. He wants, Tucker wants to hear all sides. It was found out that there was a hit on Tucker Carlson's life there in Moscow from Ukraine. So, yeah, he's a dictator. He did not want Vladimir Putin to get his word out, and he knows there's very few media outlets that would actually sit down and listen to him anyway. Tucker Carlson was willing to. He went over there. He went over there under high security, and it was determined that the Ukrainians did try to put a hit out on Tucker.
I like him.
How can you like a man who's a dictator?
I don't think he's a dictator.
In what sense? He's not elected. He rules by force. He rules with guns. He kills his opponents. He's assassinated a ton of people, including, I know someone he tried to assassinate. Fact. How is that worth supporting? Do you feel a little guilty for supporting someone like that?
No, I don't.
Really?
No, in fact, I think we should try and do more to help him win.
How rich do you think he's gotten from this war?
I have no idea.
Does it bother you that he's gotten rich?
He's not as rich as Vladimir Putin.
Well, if all comparisons are to Putin, then all bets are off.
Putin is financially raped and pillaged his country for...
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't...
Come on, Tucker.
Okay, let's say he has.
He's got a personal net worth of 100 billion rubles, whatever it is.
How we would know that, but great, he does. He's evil. We'll just stick with that. But the question is, why would you support personally a dictator who's gotten rich on a war in his country, who bans a Christian denomination and who murders his political opponents?
Well, he'd literally only been the
leader. Does that bother you at all?
Well, he'd been leader of his country for 2 years.
Well, he's done a lot of oppression in 2 years.
He didn't get rich on corruption in 2 years.
But can I ask you, when you talk to Zelensky,
Putin's been doing this for 30 years.
Why don't you have an election? Why don't you stop murdering your political opponents? Why don't you let people practice their Christian denomination? Why don't you let Russian speakers speak Russian and read Russian books? That's what non-dictators do.
Did you say any of that to Putin?
Of course not.
Why not?
Because I'm not his friend. I don't have the relationship with Putin that you have with Zelensky. I didn't tweet after my interview, "You're a very handsome man. I love you. I love you."
I didn't call him a very handsome man. Although
I think you did.
I don't think he's a very handsome man, actually.
Okay. Hot is maybe what you said.
I don't think I called him hot.
Okay. Well, you said I really admire you, and I think.
But you asking me to ask all the questions of Zelensky, you didn't ask Putin.
Because he's a personal friend of yours. I'm not friends with Putin. I'm just a guy who's
personal friends with Zelensky.
Ooh,
I
read your Twitter feed.
I admire him.
You can't fool me, Piers.
You can't miscategorize me. I'm not a friend of his. I've only met him once, but I do admire his fortitude as a leader. I love the fact he stayed in Kyiv when the Russians went in. He could have fled. Many would have done that position. Everyone thought the Russians would win in a few days.
Yeah,
they didn't.
I agree.
I do admire the fortitude that he showed as a leader. Those characteristics I like. Doesn't mean he's...
You called him a magnificent leader. In fact, I'm pretty sure...
I think he has been.
Okay, so I'm just asking, since I didn't call Putin a magnificent leader at all.
But nor did you ask him any of the questions that you want me to ask.
I didn't feel like... I didn't want to do what everybody does, which is, you're so bad, Vladimir Putin, meaning I'm so good, I'm going to give you a moral lecture. I'm like, whatever, it's your country. Country's actually doing great. I was super impressed by Moscow. I'd recommend it to everybody just because it's beautiful and orderly, which I like. I'm not moving there. They don't have freedom of speech, which is a prerequisite for me. But I didn't feel like that was my job. I just want to hear what the guy says. We're fighting a war against him and no one's heard him speak.
Why do you believe him?
I don't know that I do.
Do you know? I mean, you believe his reasoning.
I believe something.
You believe the reasoning for the war. You're fully all in on the Russian.
There's kind of no question about that.
Well, there's a lot of questions
I
about
don't
it.
really think so. I don't think any informed person... I mean, Bill Burns...
Only 10% of people in eastern Ukraine actually want Russia to take them over.
Okay, I don't know how we know that, but I believe that. But it doesn't...
It's a poll, same poll you quoted me about Crimea.
So that wasn't a poll, it was an election.
So
which are critical to democracy.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that.
But the vast
when you're a magnificent leader...
An election is a poll. They're called polls.
An election is a poll. A poll is not an election.
He says that an election is a poll, or a poll is an election. Either way, they are not the same. The polls had Donald Trump way down. There's your poll.
An election is a poll. They're called polls.
An election is a poll. A poll is not an election, right? So there are different criteria for polls.
Well, a poll can be an election, yes.
A poll can
In general, possessions are over. It's a little. It's not accurate.
If even democracy. Now we're getting metaphysical.
At libertysafe.com
that.
or find a Liberty dealer, a retailer near you to order your limited edition safe today. Liberty Safe, made in America.
Now we're getting metaphysical, but I would just say, if you believe in democracy, you believe in elections. If you have a leader who's not elected, he's not a democratic leader, he's a dictator, which is okay. That's fine. It's a foreign country. I wouldn't call any dictator magnificent just because it seems a little...
How could Zelensky have an election in the middle of a war, out of interest?
I don't know. How did Franklin Roosevelt do that in the middle of the Second World War? How did he do that?
Because no one had invaded America.
Okay. Well,
So
but how about
the people could actually vote?
Well, there are people,
you've got half of
there are people
Ukraine
making billions of dollars
Half
in
of Ukraine
business in Kiev today.
Yeah.
How about the non-occupied parts of the country? Just make a good faith effort to have an election. But he doesn't want to because I think he's pretty darn unpopular because he is a lackey of Western powers who sold his country out. And Ukrainians know perfectly well that he's getting rich. And so is the entire leadership. I was in Courchevel, France 2 weeks ago, which is probably the richest town in Europe. It's a ski town in France near Geneva. And everybody at the Hermès store was Ukrainian, using my money to buy $100,000 handbags. Nobody seems to care about that. I care because that's not freedom fighting. That's grifting. That's theft. And everybody in Europe knows that. And you know that too. Go to Romania. All their, high-end car dealerships are sold out because Ukrainians have bought the cars.
So to be clear,
what the hell is this?
So when Putin invaded Ukraine, you'd have given him what he wants? Take whatever you want?
Well, as I've said, and I really mean it from my heart. I mean, I have no I'm not getting rich from this. So I'm saying what I...
It's just a personal thought right here, but Putin would have never invaded Ukraine had he had assurances that Ukraine would not be allied with NATO. He doesn't want NATO missiles in his backyard no more than the United States wanted Soviet missiles in Cuba. It's just not going to fly. It's a national security matter. Putin's never going to tolerate NATO missiles in his backyard. We would never tolerate Chinese missiles or Russian missiles or Soviet missiles, in Cuba, period. So.
And I really mean it from my heart. I mean, I have no I'm not getting rich from this. So I'm saying what I sincerely believe,
Sure.
Which is pushing Ukraine to join NATO when NATO doesn't want Ukraine. There's no strategic reason, no actual reason to have Ukraine in NATO or to have NATO at all. We shouldn't have NATO at all.
Oh, that's preposterous.
What's the point of NATO?
To keep
Keep the
peace.
Soviets from invading Western Europe. Oh, well, it's been 35 years since they
Actually,
existed.
to keep peace.
How's that worked to keep peace?
Actually,
we now have the bloodiest war in 80 years in the middle of Europe because of NATO. So how's this peacekeeping
or
activity?
you could argue, as many people do, that actually the reason is because Ukraine wasn't in NATO. Had it been, Putin wouldn't have invaded.
That's a super crazy. This is like an addiction, and I've been through addiction, so I'm not judging at all, but it's like, I feel really shitty. I've got to have a glass of vodka to feel better.
Are you mocking my mental health?
I am.
Yes. But I'm also saying that I've lived this, so I know what it feels like. It's the thing that is killing you. It's truly killing you, whether it's NATO or vodka. You become convinced is saving you. So you wake up hungover and you're like, oh, I feel so bad. Give me a screwdriver. And if you have a screwdriver, you feel better. And you don't realize that you're starting the cycle again.
Would Putin have invaded Ukraine if it had been a member of NATO? No, he wouldn't have done. Because then America would have been obliged to
Russia would never. Here's what I know. For a fact, Putin said this for 20 years. Ukraine cannot be a member of NATO. They will not accept that any more that we would accept Chinese missiles in Tijuana, or you would accept Sri Lankan missiles in Glasgow. You're just not going to accept that.
NATO is a defensive organization.
How is it defensive?
Because it has never acted proactively, aggressively.
Really? Where were you when the Yugoslavia war was going on? And they were bombing the shit out of Christians in Yugoslavia. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That was pretty offensive.
NATO has always operated in a defensive capacity.
Really?
Yes.
That's how they created Kosovo? Defensively?
It was defensive.
Oh, it was?
Yes, it
Who
was.
was the aggressor there?
Well, you know, my brother-in-law was literally there.
Just admit it. What you're saying is insane.
It's not insane.
They could...
NATO has never actually acted unilaterally.
Okay, so the Soviet Union collapses...
It's never attacked anybody without being attacked. It's always been defensive.
When? Okay, who in Yugoslavia attacked NATO?
Look.
Yeah, bullshit.
Just no, here's the point where you just admit defeat. Bow your head and be like, you know what? I bow before superior knowledge. I totally got this wrong. I can't believe I had such a silly idea. I'm sorry.
Well, you think nice, good guys in Yugoslavia...
I'm not saying they're nice, good guys. I'm just saying that was not a defensive action. That was an offensive action. Bill Clinton's like, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to use NATO to kill you. And he did, and then created Kosovo as a NATO base.
Because they were absolute genocidal maniacs.
They may have been naughty. I'm not defending their behavior.
But that's what they were being defended against.
Who are we defending?
The Yugoslavians that were being pillaged and raped and murdered.
By other Yugoslavians?
Yes.
Okay.
That was absolutely great. That's why I love Tucker Carlson Unchained. He is so much better now than when he was on Fox News. And I got to say, Piers Morgan had this all wrong. But for Tucker to, to tell him, I'm not going to sniff his jock, I mean, he slapped Piers Morgan around so much. It was absolutely hilarious. Tucker Carlson, he's one of those good guys. I believe him. I believe what he says. I didn't all the time at Fox News, but I knew why. When he wanted to speak, he was chained up. Now he's free to speak exactly how he wants to, and I think he's just truly one of the good guys. So I thought that was a really cool video. Funny as shit, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, Bobby D once again here at the lounge. If you have any comments, please drop them below. And if you like this video, check out some of my other videos. And please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you guys next time here at the lounge with me.